Hi, everyone. This is Seven Star from the Center for Self Compassion, and I'm here with Maria Stariti. And our topic that we're going to discuss today is what is love? So, hi, Maria. How are you?
Hi, Seven Star. I'm well. How are you?
Oh, good, good. I'm good. Yeah.
Great.
So, I heard that you went around and asked a variety of people about love and what they think it means. I'm really curious what
I
people said.
did. I did. And the biggest thing that struck me was that people seem to really just have a hard time answering the question. They seem kind of stumped and they
Mm,
just sort of repeat the question and they kind of look up in the air and they think about it,
uh-huh.
you know? And then a lot of people also, I hear people say that love is a verb. Kind
Hmm.
of wondered what you had to say about both of those things.
So, well, first of all, I think it's very interesting that people have a hard time answering the question when it's such a ubiquitous word.
Hmm.
How many times a day does the average person say love? Like, I love this, or I love that, or I love you, great, or it's like all day long we're saying this word over and over and over.
Yeah.
So I find it very interesting that people don't actually know what they're saying when they're saying it. So
Yeah.
that's really
I
interesting.
mean, eventually they did start to say things, but even as they said it like they almost were kind of like, "Is that right?" You know,
Ah,
like a
okay.
question, more of a statement of like feeling confident about their answer.
Yeah, yeah. What are some of the things that people said? I'm curious, or if you remember.
Um, they said mostly like you like a lot of people said I like a lot, like like
Mm-hmm.
very much, um, and care about. Um, and one of the other things um, to feel a bond with.
Mm, okay.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really glad people said that it means to like a lot, because I think that when most people are using that word love, that's what they mean.
Mhm.
And I see people struggling with this all the time, where they're not quite understanding the difference between really liking something and then loving something, which are
Mhm.
actually two totally different things.
Mhm.
Because you can like something that you don't love, and you can love something that you don't like. They
Mhm.
don't go together necessarily, although they can. When they go together, it's great. But it seems like when most people are using the word love during their everyday life, like
Mhm.
the like I was just describing, what their meaning is, I really like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it has nothing to do with love at all. It just means I really, really like, it's a strong like.
Mhm.
And liking really doesn't have anything to do with that thing. It all has to do with you having some pleasant emotional experience when you interact with that thing.
Mhm.
So you're describing a feeling that you get when you talk to that person, or you look at that thing, or you sit in that car, or you put on that outfit.
Mhm.
You feel something pleasurable in your body, basically. And when you say you don't like something, or sometimes people say I hate that, meaning I really, really don't like it, it just means that when you interact with that thing, you get a negative emotional experience in your body.
Mhm.
And it's really about you. And it's not about like the other part that you said, where love is a verb. It's not like you're actually loving that thing. It's just you're having a great emotional experience.
Yeah.
So it's really, really problematic when you're saying you love a person, but what you mean is you really, really like them. That's a huge
Mhm.
problem,
Mhm.
because what you like about that person is only going to be there sometimes, or maybe only once and never again.
Mhm.
And a lot of relationships are based on very strong like if you read personal ads, people put down, these are the things that I'm looking for. Those
Mhm.
all have to do with like and dislike. They have
Mhm.
nothing to do with love at all. So
Mhm.
they like the way a person looks, or the way they talk, or the activities that they can do together, or the money that they earn, or those are all things that they like.
Mhm.
And anything is finite and temporary, so it's going away,
Yeah.
right? So you like something that is going to go right through your fingers. So it's no wonder that relationships don't work out then, because the
Mm-hmm.
thing that you like isn't really there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what do you think about one of the other things I heard was people talked about how there are different types of love.
Ooh. Yeah, tell me more.
You know,
That's
like
interesting.
romantic love or love for your child or, love you have for family members or altruistic love,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah. So to me, all those things go back to intense like and
Mm-hmm.
actual love. So like romantic love has to do with intense like. So if you're romantically quote unquote in love with someone,
Mm-hmm.
you're experiencing this very powerful positive emotion in your body when you interact with that person.
Mm-hmm.
And we call that love, but it's not love in the way that I'm speaking about love. That's just intense like. And the other thing that I think comes along with that is that because that other person intensely likes you,
Mm-hmm.
then you feel like you're okay and you feel good about yourself. And it's very relieving because most people spend so much time trying to be someone who is okay and be someone who is lovable.
Mm-hmm.
When someone comes in their life and says, hey, I like you a lot, I
Mm-hmm.
love you, and they feel like, oh phew, all that work that I was doing and all the effort I was putting into being this thing that finally someone will like, now I can rest and stop
Mm-hmm.
doing that. So it's very, very relieving and really euphoric because you feel
Mm-hmm.
like, oh great, I'm lovable. But
Yeah.
again, the problem is that that person doesn't love you. They really, really like you, and all the things that they really, really like about you are all fleeting.
Mm-hmm.
So then the romantic quote unquote love goes away. And then people get in this stuck in the relationship because they're like, well, what do I do now? You used to be this, this, and this that I got all this pleasurable emotion from.
Mm-hmm.
Now those things are not there. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't think I love you anymore. I'm not in love with you anymore. So the relationship is over, right? But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
but really now the relationship can actually begin. As you
Mm-hmm.
forget about liking and disliking, you can actually start to do the act of love, like you were said earlier, where love is a verb,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where you do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would say. And all the other different kinds of love,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a different mishmash of like and love, I think,
Mm-hmm.
on each different level. So like the love that you have, for your family,
Mm-hmm.
there'd be other things that maybe come into that, like a sense of duty or a sense of belonging.
Mm-hmm.
But at the core, the love or the loving act that you do, or I
Mm-hmm.
would say the love that you are, really,
Mm-hmm.
does not change. It applies
Yeah.
to everyone exactly the same. Love is the same no matter who the other person is that you're talking about or what their relationship is to you.
Mm-hmm.
Even a stranger, in the case of
Mm-hmm.
altruistic love, it's exactly
Mm-hmm.
the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so do you have a definition that you use for love?
Yeah. Yeah, it's similar to what you said when we were talking earlier, that it is simply an open and loving presence.
Mm-hmm.
So you are with someone, if you are loving them, that means that you are fully present for them, you're paying attention to
Mm-hmm.
them, and you are welcoming in whatever is here in this moment as that person.
Mm-hmm.
So when you really like someone, there's all these components about the person that you'll like you like their sense of humor, or you like their face, or you like their style, whatever. And those things come and go.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're sitting with the person in one particular moment, that sense of humor might be there and you might be enjoying that. But then
Mm-hmm.
the next moment, the sense of humor is not there because you're talking about paying the bills, or they're sleeping, or your child is crying. So that's why liking gets so confusing, because
Mm-hmm.
now that person's not there. So when you're loving them, you're being with whoever they are in each moment. So even when they're upset or they're angry, or they didn't do their chores, or they didn't do their housekeeping, or they lost their job, or their, all of that, you still are here with them. Whatever is arising in this moment as you, I'm here with that. That would be the act of loving. So it's whatever you are at this moment, whatever your authentic self is right now, I welcome that and I'm attuned to it. So so that's the big difference, is that basically there's no preferences.
Right.
Yeah. And you can really, really strongly dislike what is arising right now as that person. You might not like their behavior or how they look or what they're saying, or that they got fired. But you can still be here as an open, loving presence. So you can still love them.
Yeah.
I think that earlier you were saying people say that love is a verb, which is a kind of a catchy phrase. But like we were talking earlier about, I'm thinking that is a little bit of kind of an answer to this older definition that we had about love in our particular culture. That's what I call like a Disney love, where you have like the princess who's rescued by the prince, or love at first sight kinds of things, where there's people intensely like each other, and then they couple up, and then it's like, that's it. Well, then you never see what happens after that. Like, as though you really like each other when you're young and your whole life is ahead of you, and you're, you're very svelte and whatever. And then just because of that, it's supposed to be no problem. But then you move in together and you have a household to run and children to take care of, and your body starts aging, and then but that's okay. It's all going to be fine. This doesn't make any sense. So, and I also think that kind of chivalrous idea of love, where the man is like, I love you, and you get married, and then the man goes away and works and isn't really there. The woman raises a child. As women become a little bit more equal in their role and they're able to do more out in the world, they're expecting, I think, more from men. They want more of a consistent reminder. Like, I want you to tell me you love me, and I want you to show me by like buying me things or doing things around the house or blah, blah, blah. But even that is still a little bit confusing, because first of all, it's not natural. It's like you're forcing the person to do it. And the other thing is that it's almost like that feeling of intense they're trying to recreate it and reinforce it. Like, you still really like me, right? You still think I'm attractive, right? You still think I'm smart, right? You still think I'm funny, right? You still like being around me. All of the things the check boxes, the things that you liked about me when we got together, that's still there, right? You still like those things, right? And it's really impossible, because the things that, first of all, aren't going to be there, because people change. And secondly, that isn't love. So then there can be this like tension when people start changing. And they're like, well, you still like me, right? Even though I gained 300 pounds, you still like me. And they're like, well, maybe this whole problem comes up.
Yeah.
Because that's what the relationship was based on, what you like. So.
And also, I think, based on what you said, when women didn't have, the ability to go out and be out in the world, and I think back then, or even still now, I think people enter relationships, and it seems more like a business arrangement, more like how how is it all gonna work out equal? Like, how are we gonna balance how much I do and how much you do? And to me, I'm not so sure love has anything to do with that. Like keeping score.
Right.
Or even like reciprocity. Like, I don't see that as part of love. I see that as part of a kind of construct that we have as a capitalist society.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of, how are we going to barter this where it's a fair trade,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that those things are important because it is like you're running a business. I
Mm-hmm.
agree. When you're living in a household with someone, there are certain things that have to get done
Yeah.
with anyone, a roommate or a partner or a spouse or a friend
Mm-hmm.
or, family member.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is very businesslike. And I actually have talked to people about this. I've talked to couples about this, where it is like you're running a business. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to have a checklist. Like every morning, this has to get done, and every afternoon, this has to get done, and every night, this has to. And so those are the kind of things that you can negotiate.
Mm-hmm.
However, that isn't what makes you like or dislike the person. It's not personal. Those things are not personal.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem is that, again, people are looking at everything that the other person is doing and not doing as a checklist of like, okay, is it still enough things that I like that I still quote unquote love them? Right. And so that's just a different layer. So if you are living with someone,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully you like them
Mm-hmm.
and you love them both.
Mm-hmm.
You can love everyone, but you're not going to like everyone. This is another thing where people get freaked out about compassion. They think that it means that I have to like everyone or I have to be nice to everyone. And that's not the case at all. You can love people and really, really dislike them.
Yeah.
So when you're choosing someone to be partnered with, or you're choosing someone to live with, it's really important that you have all the different layers. Is this someone that I can run a household with?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And is this someone that I like, that I actually enjoy being around? That like meaning like when I'm interacting with them, I feel pleasurable emotions. Like we have fun
Mm-hmm.
together, and so I like them.
Mm-hmm.
And is this a person who knows what love is and is capable of entering into kind of an agreement with me where we're going to be open, loving, and present for each other? So those are all three separate things. It gets very
Yeah.
problematic when they get all tangled together.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, now I don't love you anymore because you don't clean the house.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole separate thing. You still love them. And then within that, now you have this like a platform from which you can discuss something you don't like
Mm-hmm.
because you're open and they're open. And now you can talk about the thing that you don't like. It's
Mm-hmm.
not about now I don't like you or you don't like me.
Right. I mean, I've had breakups where I still love them. It just
Sure.
it no longer seems like it's serving us to
Yeah.
be together, right? But I can still love them, and I do,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
absolutely. Yeah.
just recognize that it's really not working for either of us, you know,
Yeah.
anymore. Yeah.
Right. And I also think that when you don't think of all the different layers or components,
Mm-hmm.
then it's you're almost back to that kind of Disney-esque idea about love. It's like, well, I love them, so now we're going to get married and move in together.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like, well, what does that have to do with anything? You can still evaluate whether this is a good person for you to live with. Are
Mm-hmm.
you going to be able to run a household with this person?
Yeah.
So that has nothing to do with how much you like them or love them. That's its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and sometimes people they get married or whatever, they get together, they move in together, and then over time they're able to kind of work it out.
Mm-hmm.
But often they're not, since we see the high numbers of divorce and how
Mm-hmm.
many breakups and relationships people go through and how unhappy a lot of people are in the relationships that they still have or are trying to keep together.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all things that you can really parse apart. They're not like, I love the person, therefore it will be a great team living together. And I'll always like them forever,
Mm-hmm.
even when they're old or when they're sick or when they lose their job or when we have 5 children or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
they're all separate things.
Yeah.
So Um, so again, just that whole like love is a verb.
Mm-hmm.
I just caution people with that because you don't want it to be like, I expect my partner to keep doing things to let me know that they still like me, because that's not love. And then it can become a power struggle.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, hopefully that, I mean, you can't really love somebody else till you love yourself, right?
Absolutely.
And so if you're looking for them to fill all that for you, then you have some work on yourself that you should tend to, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Even that though gets a little confusing because
Mm-hmm.
again, when people say, love myself, what they
Mm-hmm.
usually really mean is like myself.
Right.
So people feel like, well, I don't really like myself. I don't like how
Right.
I look, or I don't like how I talk, or I don't like how much I weigh, or I don't like,
Right.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
And they think they have to like themselves. Um, but you don't, but love is the same. Like I said, it applied to anyone. That
Mm-hmm.
includes yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because the open, loving presence, it's almost like if you imagine a big room and the room is love, and anyone who goes in the room, they're being loved,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you are the room, and anyone who comes in that room, including you.
Mm-hmm.
So when you love yourself, it's like you're the room and you're inviting whatever, like just like I said earlier, where you're inviting whatever is arising now as that other person. You're
Mm-hmm.
welcoming that and you're paying attention to it. You would do the same for yourself. And so
Right.
either you are the room or you're not. You're
Mm-hmm.
either doing that act or you're not doing it. And if you are doing it, then you would be doing it for who is ever there,
Mm-hmm.
including you. So that's why you can't be loving towards someone else and not yourself, because you're both there in the room.
Mm-hmm.
You're there and the other person, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So um, when I hear people talking about this, usually what they're talking about is, well, I didn't really like myself. So I had to like myself and feel like, oh, I deserve to be treated really good or like a queen or whatever, so
Mm-hmm.
that when I meet someone, I would expect them to treat me that way. But it's not
Mm-hmm.
about that at all. It's not about liking, right? So, and again, that goes back to like love is a verb, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I feel like I'm this great person. So I deserve roses and I deserve chocolates and I deserve cars or whatever. People have their ideas of what is romantic. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really not about any of that at all. It would be someone loving you means that they're here for you, whoever you are right now in this moment. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you can either do it or you can't. It's like a skill that you learn. And if you, so the first person that you can practice it on is yourself, because you're always here. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're practicing the opposite of that, you're practicing not being there for yourself, or you're practicing hating yourself, meaning that you're not there for yourself, then
Mm-hmm.
there's no way that you'll be not doing that to other people. Like, however you treat other people, it's just an extension of how you treat yourself, period. So
Mm-hmm.
in that sense, yeah, absolutely, you have to love yourself, because that's where the practice comes from. We won't know how to love someone else unless you practice it on yourself first.
Yeah. So that's a little confusing though, because if we believe if I believe I am love,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then, like, did I arrive like this? That I am love? Or is it a skill that I had to learn?
Ah, yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. So absolutely. So the thing is that your true nature is love. And yes, you arrived that way.
Mm.
But then we have these wonderful, complicated brains. And our brain does this thing where when we're little, we look out into the world and we're very adaptable. So we
Mm.
don't have to behave a certain way. We're not pre-programmed. We don't have instinct. So
Mm.
we look at other humans and we go, tell me what this world is all about. And who am I and how do I fit in? And how do I get food and water and money and whatever I need to do to survive here? And whatever they tell us, we go, oh, great. Okay. And then we just put that in like we're installing little programs in our mind.
Mm.
And then we do that instead of being our true nature. Now, if we had caregivers who know their own true nature and know that they are love, then they will pass that on to us. But most of us who had most parents didn't get that. We got incorrect programming that hides that true nature.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really busy doing all of that. The true nature is still here. We still
Mm-hmm.
are love. It's just that we don't recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We think that we don't think we're love. We think we're unlovable, and that love is something we have to go out and get. So it's just a matter of you are, that is your true nature, yes, and you did come that way, but now you're busy doing this other thing because that other part of your brain took over and is like, no, 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 forget that. We have to do these other things over here to survive. That's all. So as soon as you stop doing those other things to survive, your true nature is right here.
Mm-hmm.
So people think that love is something that you give and receive and you get and you give out, but it's not. It's just your nature. As soon as you stop trying to get or do or be someone and all of that, then you come to rest in
Mm-hmm.
love. You're like, oh, I'm already standing in the room this whole time. I was just busy going, hey, do you have love? Do you have love? Do you have love? But you don't know you're standing in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if that helped alleviate any of the
Yeah,
confusion at
it,
all.
it does. But I feel like the more we go, the more I'm like it definitely seems like it's a cyclic thing where like if you if you aren't if you aren't loving to yourself, you can't love somebody else. If you haven't learned the skill of loving, then it's probably that you you didn't have that reflected
Yeah.
back to you. So you kind of go with, and that's, I guess that's why people think like, oh, well, they loved me and now they don't love me. They did this and that and now they don't do it. So because like I don't know about a lot of people how everybody grew up, but for me, like I felt loved, but I also felt like when my mom was angry, I felt I didn't feel like I had her attention in the way I wanted it, in the way that felt safe. Um, and so that gets confusing as a child. Like you grow up to, I guess, feel like you have to earn love, but it's not something earned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and really, and when you're a child, it's a little bit different because when you are a child, you physically are dependent on those caregivers, or else you really are going to die.
Mm-hmm.
So what in your mind, what you think of as love is more like what you said. It's attention
Mm-hmm.
and it's actual physical caregiving. But the way that people misunderstand love, it has to do with like, right? And just like we
Mm-hmm.
talked about. And so if you're a parent and you have a child, you can also, fall prey to this where you like your child a lot and then you want to be around them. And then when you don't like your child, you don't want to be around them.
Mm-hmm.
For the child, that's absolutely terrifying because if you don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be around them, it's life threatening.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where we learn this whole incorrect schema that
Mm-hmm.
love, it means like. So if mommy really, really likes me right now, if I do the behaviors that mommy likes, then I'm going to survive.
Mm.
So you start doing the behaviors that you know mommy likes, and you stop doing the behaviors that you know mommy doesn't like. You
Mm.
have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. But the problem is that then when you grow up, you think that like is love. So then you
Mm.
have a boyfriend and you're going to do your behaviors that you know your boyfriend likes because you don't want
Mm.
him to leave you. You
Mm-hmm.
don't understand that that's nothing to do with love. And now you're an adult. You don't need your boyfriend to take care of you. It's not your mommy.
Mm-hmm.
But your brain is it's stuck there. It has this program. It's like the definition of love. Someone came in and kind of erased it and replaced it with this other wrong thing. Um, and so that's what I mean by practicing. When
Mm-hmm.
you practice, all you're going to do is recognize where you have these erroneous definitions.
Mm.
Like, oh, okay, I thought that I am not lovable and I need to do ABC to get
Mm-hmm.
love, but that's not love. And I
Yeah.
know after working with so many people that love, it really is your true nature.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you mention it to people, they always go, oh, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
They just forgot, or they never had someone come to them and say, no, this isn't how you're supposed to work. This isn't how you're designed to work. You're
Mm-hmm.
designed to work this other way. You just got a little bit confused. And as soon as they hear that, most people recognize it as, oh, okay, yeah, feels right,
Mm-hmm.
because it hasn't gone anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it is the way we all came. We just get a little lost along the way, because
Mm-hmm.
again, we'll do whatever our caregivers say is what we have to do, so that we'll make it through that very, very, very vulnerable 26-year childhood phase that we have. Right? We're so dependent. Like our brain isn't ready to go until we're 26. We have a
Mm-hmm.
super long childhood. We're so dependent for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So we get all this programming.
26?
26, right around 26 is when the frontal lobe is done cooking.
Wow.
Yeah. But when
Is
you think
that
about it, it makes a lot of sense, right?
it's that's fascinating. Is that true like globally? Because some parts of the world, kids are like taking on massive adult responsibility very young and seem like, I don't know, like does that make their frontal lobe grow quicker?
That's just an average.
Yeah.
But actually, that's a really good question. And I don't want to say that I know the answer before I do some research. But I
Mm.
just know from reading a lot and taking psychology classes and things, it's something
Mm.
that I've heard over and over and over, that it's right around 26, actually, they're discovering that the frontal lobe is actually finished. It's the
Wow.
last part of the brain to develop, right? The frontal lobe is the part that does all of your logic and reasoning.
Yeah. Right.
That's the part that intervenes when you get very emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm familiar with all of that. I wonder if that's always been too. I wonder like if if we're developing slower in the frontal lobe than we used to decades ago.
That would make sense because we're living longer. It's hard to
Mm.
think that you're not done until 26 and then average lifespan is only 32, right?
Hmm.
So I see what you mean. And I really
Yeah.
just don't know the answer, and I would have to look
Yeah.
and find out. But it's interesting. Yeah.
Mm.
But it makes sense if you think about the behavior of some early people in their early 20s,
Yeah.
right? So um,
Yeah.
yeah. So they still just need so much direction and guidance
Hmm.
from people whose frontal lobe is finished, right? Hopefully,
Hmm.
or as finished as
Yeah.
possible, or a little more finished at least. um,
Hmm.
but so yeah, so we're so dependent during that time for
Hmm.
such a long time, and we really are just taking in from other people around us and going, oh, okay, I guess that's the way things are done, which is a really cool thing that the human brain can do. But then it's also can be very dangerous because
Hmm.
we'll just believe anything that the caregivers say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thinking of about like newborn babies,
Mm-hmm.
like anytime I've ever been around a new baby or especially held a baby, it's so like it's to me it's just like just it's so love, it's just pure love in a little
Mhm.
bundle, and so then I think, well, it must not have anything to do with anything to do because the baby's just gonna be there, just completely open, completely just wide-eyed and just open, but doesn't have to do anything
Yeah.
just for you to feel that love, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this is a really good way to visualize that kind of open, um, curious presence, right?
Mhm.
They're very curious about what's going on. And the other thing is that they're not uh, what probably we as Americans would call self-conscious,
Mhm.
which really means that they're not aware of a person that they identify as their self,
Mhm.
that they can be watching and judging. So that's part of what allows them to be so open. They can
Mhm.
just be expressive, whatever
Right.
comes up. So they are allowing whatever's there as them in the moment to arise. It's
Mhm.
welcome for them.
Mhm.
So it's exactly like that. And then over time, they start habits of turning that off and hiding it and replacing it with things that are not authentic, right? So, and then as you get older, you think that those inauthentic things are who you are.
Mhm.
So it becomes your personality, like, oh, well, I'm just very independent. I don't need anyone. But actually,
Mhm.
that's not really your personality. It's just an adaptation that you learned because if you asked your parents for something, they you received an unpleasant response from them. So then you
Right.
develop this thing and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Which is
absolutely.
which is genius, really, because it's survival,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing is when you're doing this work of returning to your true nature, there isn't anything for you to feel ashamed of because
Mhm.
it really is a genius thing that your brain is doing, trying to help you.
Mhm.
And it's really amazing the way our brain has evolved. But it can also make you miserable. So if you want, you can stop doing it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at the time. It looks
Yeah.
like we are out of time. I just wanted to thank you so much. It's a great
Thank
conversation. I really
you. Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah, it was really great.
Yeah. And so for anyone who is watching this video, if you have any topics that you'd like us to cover, or if you have any questions about what we have discussed here, please leave that in the comment section below. And thank you again, and we will see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.